football. Let's get to LSU football because I know people want to listen to it. Brian Kelly had his
Back
presser.
to Colin Kaepernick.
Brian Kelly, no. They play the Lobos. They play the New Mexico Lobos this weekend. They are favored, I think, by 30
and a half.
30 and a half. And here's the deal. We talked about going into Southern. Now, I think New Mexico is obviously better than Southern. I think that if you want to see the improvement, you want to see the things, you want to see, Jaden Daniels do the things that you want to see. You may not get a true sense of it this game, but they go out here and they take care of business and they do the things that they're supposed to do. That's what you do.
I don't. Yeah, but I say personally, when games like this get put on the schedule, I could care less how they do it, as long as they take care of business and come out healthy. That's all. That's all I really care about.
Not to disagree, because I agree. Like, obviously, you want to get a win first, but I feel like it's a little bit of the Southern game for what they did with Keyshawn Boutte, but this is for Jack Bech. Like, let's get him involved.
Well, that's what I was
let's be able to get the egos back up for all the guys around that are kind of culture builders. Like, you want Jack Bech to be involved. You saw what happened against Florida State, where Boutte had maybe bad body language, but you can see why the more you've watched the games. People are running kind of wide open. They're not able to get the ball. I can see why a wide receiver would be upset about that. Jack Bech is being utilized none at all.
And
he played 3 snaps.
Right, and I think that there's a sense of, hey, we're going to ease you in because of the stress fracture in your shins that you didn't really play in August. I get that, right? Well, it's week 3. You've gotten them in. And I know it's a big deal. You know it's a big deal. You know it's a big deal. When Brian Kelly has his Wednesday presser and he makes sure to single out Jack Bech and talk about how he wanted to get him more involved and how he needs to be part of the offense, right? Like, when the head guy does that, it means something, especially when the head guy doesn't really act on emotion, right? Guy who says things and he's very calculated and he's not just throwing things at the wall just because the fans want to hear it or just because they're asking questions. Like, if he didn't want to answer that question, he didn't think Jack was going to play, he wouldn't have said that, right? I think he's making a conscious effort to put him in the game and make him part of the offense, and I think that it took him a couple weeks to figure out how he was going to insert him.
Well, I mean, you said it perfectly. Like, he came out and actually said that one this time. I don't think, like, it's one thing if you tell it to the player. It's one thing if you tell it to the staff. It's another thing when you come out and say it in the press, because if Jack's not more involved, what do you think's the first question he's going to get? And then the next one, and the next one, and the next one, right? So I think, like, he's literally, he's speaking to him through the media.
And he's beating the media to the punch.
Right, yeah, exactly. So I think, you will see him more involved. Like, you don't say things like that and then he's not more involved come the next week. And
everything that Brian Kelly has done through the press in regards to players has been, like, almost a message to them. He asked, hey, whatever Keyshawn Boutte and the whole thing was going on, he, like, talked through him through the media. Right. He talked to Jere Jenkins, like, I'd love to see him be more of a leader. Brian Thomas, I see how athletic you are. I'd like to see you take that next step. All of those things have come to fruition, so he's not just talking to talk.
Right, and that goes into him having conversation with these guys behind the scenes before he goes to his presser and makes it public, right? Like, he's not going to say something like that to basically put them in a bad position and make them look bad, right? He's going to say, hey, this is what I expect out of you. Like, this is the next progression in your development.
And I'd imagine, too, even if he isn't every time right now going to him and telling him about these things, I would imagine that through the spring, through the summer, up to now, he's building up the equity within there to be able to tell them time and time again, like, hey, look, if you hear these things, if I say these things, I mean it, right? Like, I'm not just saying it to say it. So maybe he isn't. Hopefully he is. If he isn't, it's okay. But if he says these things and he means them and he sticks by them, then you can hear them as a player, even if he doesn't come to you first, and be like, all right, he means business with this.
Right. We'll see. I mean, he's going to get involved. He's going to have some. He had a touchdown against Southern. Like, I think he's going to start his play. The amount of plays he plays in the game is going to continue to increase. Another guy that kind of made a.
But before we get off with the Jack Bech thing, do you think where does he fit in? I feel like there's every kind of spot's been.
Here's the deal. I think that with the type of offense that they were successful running in the last, the second half of the last game, and then the
second
fourth
half
quarter,
of every game.
right. The fourth quarter of the Florida State game was, hey, we're going to get this ball out quick, short passes, get the balls to athletes. I think that's where Jack plays, right? Like, Jack's very physical receiver. He can go up and get it, but he's not going to take the top off the defense, right? That's not what he's there for. But when you throw it to him, he's going to catch it. He's going to block his ass off, And I think that's where he plays. He's going to be the underneath guy.
Yeah.
He's going to be able to say, hey, I'm one of your 2-3 reads, and you're going to get the ball to me, and you throw it to me, I'm not going to drop it, right? I'm a possession guy. I'm going to get it for you, and then when you run, I'm gonna bury somebody. I'm gonna pancake the shit out of the guy that's supposed to cover me because I see that you're past the line of scrimmage, and now I can go and do it. You know what I mean?
We said this before. I know, obviously we don't know. We're not there every day. We're not at practice, but I think they can utilize Jack in a situation where he is that motion guy. He is that underneath guy. He is that mismatch guy. Right? He's too big for nickel corners. He's too quick for outside linebackers. I think he can end up being in those situations and then inside blocking on some of this running game stuff and then use it more that way.
And this is something that I was kind of thinking about where you could take some of that stuff off Mason Taylor's plate. I don't know if Jack Bech is adamant about playing wide receiver and to where you
just do it in a different way. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
But you can get him involved because Mason Taylor, the more you watch the games, he's getting it feels like he's taking too many college credits at once as a freshman where he's like, all right, I'm in motion. I'm in the game almost every play.
Yeah.
And this is some of the stuff that Jack Bech does well. Like, you don't want to dictate.
For sure.
And
Your-
look,
I think
Mason's going to be a huge part of the team, right? He's taking
awesome.
some of his lumps early.
I think Mason's going to be the guy he needs to be. Now, listen, I am not saying that this is what should happen. I'm saying that I think that I would like to see it because I think that he would be he'd be very good at it. Mason Taylor, going in motion and getting the ball in the flat, that's one thing, right? I think Jack is better suited for that because I feel like he would make that first guy miss, get it up the sideline, kind of whatever, right? Mason Taylor, the tight end over the middle, the tight end kind of having leverage on the backer in the red zone,
him stretching the middle.
Him
of the
stretching
field
the middle of the field, I think is
Such a
what he would
mismatch
do
in that
because he's an
regard.
athletic, big tight end who a linebacker is not going to be able to cover. And I think that's why Brian Kelly had brought this up. I think he made it a point to say Jack Bech needs to play, and we need to get him in because he realizes, all right, this is how we're going to do this, right? I think he sees it.
And you don't want to let personnel dictate scheme, right? Like, you don't want to be able to go, okay, Jack Bech is in, so LSU's going to do.
I think personnel does kind of dictate scheme.
Right, but that's why they're keeping Mason Taylor in and not putting Jack Mashburn in on run plays.
Right.
They're trying to make him do both because you want to be multiple. If you bring Jack Bech in, he's going to have to do some of that dirty work, which it feels like it's not that he doesn't want to do it. It's just that he's better suited to be a wide receiver.
Well, and maybe they also wanted him to get physically up to speed, healthy, and before they actually start asking him to do stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of, that's what we're here to do is assume and kind of make our opinions on things based off what we see. There's a lot of assumptions that we don't. There's a lot of answers that we don't know There's a lot of questions we don't know the answers to. We're gonna find them out. Hopefully, it's not like the old regime, which obviously I know it's not, but the old regime would say, hey, we're going to do something, and then nothing ever happens. You know what I mean? Obviously, I would expect this regime to say, hey, we're going to do something, and you see it. I think you've seen that throughout the course of the first 3 weeks.